Okay, welcome everyone. At this time, we call to order the Board of Trustees workshop for November 18th. First on the agenda, Nadelson, Munistat Services regarding financial planning and bonding.
Well, thank you. My name is Noah Nadelson. I'm from Munistat. We are a municipal advisory service. We've been working with the village for a few years, on the financing of, so far, the water and the sewer projects. And so they're, when the village borrows money, I mean, there are two parties in the transaction. There's us, and then there's bond counsel, and they provide the legal opinion on the notes. And so, for the most part, what we do, well, I wouldn't say for the most part, but one of the things that we do is that we help to prepare this, what we call an official statement of prospectus, right? And so this is the offering document for the village. And if you have mutual funds and you get these things in the mail and you throw them out, and so this is what we write, we write, and so but that's the law. I mean, you get that because you're supposed to be informed of the investment decision that you're making. And so now, it started, and our work with the village started, a few years ago with the water improvement, with the water project, and then last year, and so over the past 3 years, we started off borrowing practically 1.1 million in 2011 for that, and then we added a little bit of more money and 1.3 in 2012, and then we added the sewer project in here. And so what we've been doing is staying in what we call bond anticipation notes. And and I'll get into that in a minute, but so we'll get into that now. Bond anticipation notes are, well, exactly like they sound. They're 1 year maturity. They're issued for up to 1 year, and what they do is they provide the village a little bit of flexibility, so that, and there's a lot of just textbook reasons to sell bands, as we call them. And that is if there's a project that is going to be funded by grants, you don't want to, but you have to spend the money. A lot of times the grants work that way. You have to spend the money before you get the money. So, for example, you have $1 million projects, 300,000 is going to be picked up by grants, and so you spend it. You finish the project, you get the $300,000 in grants, and then you convert the balance to bonds. So it kind of, because you don't want to bond the whole million because it's going to be picked up by the balance. So. The village has done very well, God bless us, because of the interest rates. And generally speaking, well, the interest rates on bands, because it's a 1 year maturity, are a lot lower than bonds. So, for example, the first band that, and we've also had success in kind of building the name with the market. In that the first band that we sold was, the village got a 1.3%, and then the next year it was 1.1%, and then this past year it was under 1%, it was a 0.96. So you've done, now the risk obviously with interest with bands is that when it does come time to convert to bonds, where are the interest rate? You're subject to the prevailing rates at that particular time. So there's the risk, but the rates on bonds are, for example, a 20-year bond or 3-4%. So in the meantime, the village has benefited, by just getting the 1% rates or thereabouts over the past 3 years. So you hit a home run. I mean, some of it, is luck, obviously, but it's also allowed the village to kind of just, draw down as you need it and provide that flexibility. One of the other things that is also helpful, and I don't have much to hand out today. I think we're just kind of, it's big picture kind of stuff. But one of the things that we do that's in the back of,
Sure.
it is the. In the back of this official statement is what we have appendix pages, and what the market is looking for is the trend of the financial and operating results. Okay, so what this is straight from your audit, the last 5 years, including this past fiscal year ending 14. And so what I did is I carved out the bottom to just kind of give you an idea of what everybody looks at. Okay, so the village has done very well over the past 5 years, from a negative fund balance 5 years ago to a nice healthy fund balance, and that is And again, that also attributes to you can also look at the rates and say, see that the market is getting a lot more comfortable, with the village and the more balanced operations. So you see that the bottom line is what everybody looks at, right? How much money do you have, and then how much money do you, the flexibility that you have. And so in terms of, I see that 16%, and that 300,000 represents 16% of the revenues. Okay, so that's a fund balance. It's one of the things that rating agencies look at. It's one of the things State Controller looks at. GFOA, NICOM, New York Conference of Mayors, or all these new state organizations that kind of put out the best practices. So 16% is a good number, and in fact, the rating agencies would even like to see that higher. But you have to understand that the rating agencies want to see you squirrel away all the money and tax as much as you can. Right, so there's an inherent conflict of interest between what the rating agencies want to see and what we want to do, right? So, but that's a nice, good, balanced number. However, as we all know, it's a lot of money to everybody here in this room. $300,000, it can go away like that, right? So, and that's the biggest, I guess that's the biggest obstacle that we have, and that comes into play to a lot of things. Is just the size of the village. Okay. That's just the overview. So I guess another thing is on bands is that the costs associated with it are a lot less too, versus bonds. When you sell bonds, you need a rating. There's a lot more work. There's filings that have to be done with the state controller. So, for example, the sale of bonds the fees are probably total about $4,000 or $5,000, whereas bonds would be closer to $30,000. Okay, so what have we been? Ellen and I have been talking about things. I guess over the past few years, occasionally we get, the idea. And let me just say this: it's very common with a village. We do over 55 villages. I live in a little tiny village with about the same, even smaller budget, and it kind of, you look at it and it prohibits everybody from actually doing things. It's very common that we work with villages for 5, 6, 7 years before we actually ever do anything. And again, we'll talk about the cost and just kind of rules of thumb in a minute. But when you have a small budget, any incremental cost or expense just feels like a whole lot of money, and it is. So. But what we've been talking about over the past, one of the things I didn't do is, this is also water and sewer project. That's what's going on that's what we've been borrowing for. And those funds are super, super healthy. But what we've been talking about over the past, I will say that a few things have come up over the years, right? And no secret. In the firehouse, we've discussed. The water and sewer projects also are potentially go into fixing the dams, and we've the last time I was in front of this board, different phases. We talked about phasing in the project for the dams, but that's maybe for another time. What we've been throwing around in the meantime and talking about, and again, this is just trying to put things into perspective. Ellen and I didn't make any decisions. Okay, this is what we're doing. But a few of the different projects that are going on. One of them is the boat club. Other is, I understand, it's a curb project that's sort of grant related, but the village will be responsible for at least a portion of that, to have to pay for that. And then another one that we were saying that after these curbs get done, is it perhaps would that lead to paving of Main Street? Okay, so we just threw out numbers out there, just to try to get an idea and try to put some numbers into perspective. So one of the things what we kind of came up with is say $500,000 for the boat club, $200,000 for the curbs, and about another $700,000 for pavement. Okay. Based on what, I don't know. These are my numbers, but they're probably not too far off. So it's approximately $1.4 million. Now, what we do when we're planning this, the term in which you can finance is dictated by local finance law. So, for example, computers you can finance over 5 years. Brand new construction of a building, Class A building, can be financed over 30 years. Right? Curbs get 10 years, roads get 15 years. That's the maximum life. That doesn't mean you have to do it for that long, that's the maximum amount of time. So what we do is we put together like what we call a consolidated maturity schedule, where every little piece can get amortized over its own life. So that's the boat club going over, I figured on 20 years, I understand it might be new construction.
Do you have multiple copies of that?
Well, this is, no, but I can, you can have this, you
I
can have
thought
anything here, but I didn't, this was, I don't wanna get too into this tonight, I feel like we have, but basically, just to demonstrate a point, that gets over 20 years, the curb's over 10, and then everybody sees a tiny little bond issue at the end of that's what the market sees. They just see one number. They might have underlying pieces, and we break it out and tell you what each thing costs, but the market is bidding on one bond issue.
So our payment, even though they're different years, our payment schedule would be based on the different years. So even though they're all in one bond, payment schedule would be based on the curbs being 10 years amortization.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's one way,
Fall off and then.
yeah, and then, right, so it's
the
top
paving
weighted,
would
you're
fall
right.
off and-
Right,
okay.
it's top weighted, and so that's one way to structure it. Another way to do it is what we call a weighted average. So instead of, because one has 20, one has 10, one has 15, we can actually issue one bond for 15 years.
What are the laws, about dams? How long can you
Those are,
bond a dam?
we've always been working with 30 years, yeah,
Building?
yeah. And the water and sewer is 40 years. And I'm sure a lot of stuff in the state is probably 100 years old. But in any event,
And also with the bonds, with the dams, it's total of 30 years or 40 years. So if you're in bands for 10,
You only get 20?
right,
Okay.
right, it can
And
only
how
be
long have we been in dams? 3?
but we probably wouldn't want to do 30 years anyway. It's better to try to do, if we can, do 20 because a lot happens in 20 years and
But
you
it
don't want
starts
to
to
have
make a
to
real difference if
bond
it's
curbs.
curbs. Like when we're looking at curbs and roads and we're starting to shear off 3 and 4.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
So it's an
Exactly.
aggregate.
You see, I always talk about and this is what we're gonna have to get into, and this is what we're gonna have to determine and no determinations have to be made tonight, obviously. But, we talk about that threshold for paying. You look at the 20-year versus the 30-year. And it's just like a home mortgages. We don't like to pay our houses off in 10 years, but, it's like, what can you really do? And so you look at the total principal and interest that you pay over time on a 30-year, the total interest expense, a 30-year versus a 20-year, and you say, well, if we can just, do that extra annual, then it's gonna save us a whole lot of money over the long term. And, so generally speaking, bonds we don't go more than 20 years.
Is it a blended rate for across, the 10 to 40 year spread? So you have a schedule of 10 years at a certain rate for your curbs and 30 years at a certain rate for your dams? Or is it just one bond and pieces of it fall off? Or
Yeah, well, yes, again, the bid is on the whole bond, and we quote the rate on a blended yield. You can figure out what you're actually paying on each underlying piece.
Well, I'm wondering, and so I guess what I'm getting to is, does the rate change?
No, it's
as
fixed
it falls
it's
off?
fixed,
Okay.
once you sell the bonds, it's fixed. And so the bottom line is, based on those 3 projects, it was, anywhere, depending on the structure, if we try to level it out, it's anywhere from $120,000 to $140,000 a year. Okay, because it's basically $1.4 million. Now, and we'll get into maybe how we can ease that pain a little bit. But the rule of thumb, and a rule of thumb for this village, and because of the size, and again, it comes down to this, now the tax levy is $1.5 million. So therefore, $150,000 would be 10% increase. $75,000 for, so every $75,000 would be, 5% increase. So you think about, right, I mean, if so a project like this, if you're paying $1,000 in village taxes, right, so, you're going 7-8%, which is, it's another $100, $8,200. Paying $2,000 in village taxes, it's twice that amount. The other thing on the side, it's the same type of thing. For every $1 million, basically, just kind of, figuring this with, like what I was playing with the fire district, we were talking anywhere from again, this is a while since it's actually come up, but, you know, it was from $2 to $4 million, right? So, again, rule of thumb, for every $75,000 in debt service, right, for every $1 million that you borrow, it's about $75,000 in debt service. Okay, so that's about, it's about about 5%. Okay, so I think that, it comes down to, and again, this is, like I said, it's very common, but, we have, one of the things that we have going on right now is we have that ban that's outstanding. And what we've been able to do, like I said, it started off with 1 million, we stayed in the ban. What you do is, when the year goes, after the year, you can pay a portion of the principal down, and then you can add new money, and then new money is what we said. It's the same type of thing. So like, for example, if the village is contemplating just the boat club, for example.
You really want us to borrow money for the boat club tonight, don't you? That's like where all this is going.
No, I just happen to see this
Boat
on.
club is here.
I just, out of all the things that
Out
out of all the things that I say.
Firehouse too.
Should have come in December, that's when the firehouse is on.
Will you come
Listen,
back?
we don't have to do anything, that's fine too.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay, so the curbs gotta get done. So, so we can, and that actually, because and again, I'm just trying to help you do an efficient way of doing this. Okay, so let's talk about the curbs. Because that is grant related, there's a real incentive to do something like that, right? Now, when the bans come due in May, okay, we wanna use that. It's just a more efficient way of doing it. Unfortunately, see, it used to be that if you wanna do curbs and you needed $200,000, we'd call up the bank, you didn't even need me. We'd assist, always, but you were able to do it through the local bank. We've tried that route, in the past with that, and they'll tell you straight up now, the banks are just flat out not interested. If you went to the bank, you said, I need $200,000, and you said, I expect to get 1% like we've been getting on that, and you said, do you understand that won't even cover my gas to come over here and meet with you right now? I mean, because it's just simple math, right? I mean, you borrow $1 million at 1%, they get $10,000, that covers, certain overhead, and then they walk away with whatever they walk away. Now, if you do $200,000 or $300,000, you're not gonna get the same 1%. You're gonna get 2, 3, 4%. And then you're saying, what are we doing? We can get it done. Now, there are certain banks that just have minimum thresholds. It's not even worth the time. So I guess the point is, if there isn't any incentive to do anything, or if there is any, we should utilize that ban that matures, and it's a good time. It's a spring, it comes due in the spring, and that's where a lot of construction kind of happens. And so if you can just do the curbs, add it to the ban, and never do anything ever else again. And we can convert these to bonds at some point down the road, buy yourself some time, and think about it.
We can put general fund
Yes,
bans in with
Yes.
the water and sewer?
yes. If you think about like what the towns, what the county does, the county borrows for 50, 60, 70 projects at a time. Right, it's just, and then it's incumbent upon us, and that's what we do is, and again, the market only sees one size bond issue, and then we give you what we call apportionment schedules. We'll break down, okay, this is the debt service for this piece. And sometimes we do as much as 50, 60, 100 apportionment schedules. Otherwise, they'll say, okay, this goes to this fund, the water fund, the sewer fund, the highway fund, the police, and whatever it is. So, yeah, you can add, and again, I guess I would encourage you to use that ban and the timing if you are contemplating doing something. Now, I didn't put any real numbers, but we talk about one of the things that and I've also been working on it. It's all part of that planning process, right? So what I did, and again, this is, you can have it, but basically what I did is I took the last 3 years,
That's right.
and then I did like a multi-year projection. Okay, again, based on nothing, just hypothetical assumptions.
Other
Yeah.
than water and sewer, and you incorporate some of the other larger capital projects we have, filtering them and bans, when would you have that kind of a breakdown? So we see a real breakdown of what we're gonna be experiencing over the next so many years.
Right, yeah, and so we have gone through that before, and I think, and that,
Well, new
so
faces,
this,
I just.
right, yeah, this is, well, this is, like, for example, if if we're able to define, and, you know, it's subject to further discussion, I mean, it's how, because understand that we sat here in I guess it was 2011, and one of the things about the water fund is that, one of the bond issues matures in 2018 is the last year. And that's approximately 230, 240.
Yeah, 180.
Oh, I'm sorry, 200.
Principal, 180, yeah, 200.
About approximately $200,000 in debt service that's coming off in 18. So what we were trying to do is sit in bands and really we had like a 6-phase project. There was a lot of numbers on that. And I remember being here, you know, it was tough. But it hasn't moved forward, and nothing ever does as fast as, you know, you once think it's going to. So, and that's not a bad thing, because, you know, it's been able to buy ourselves some time and phase into that, or get closer to that point where we're gonna have some relief. I actually think I might be even, but it was, you know, we were talking about, it was approximately $3 million project, total 2.5.
Broken the dams now.
Yeah,
The
but
dams.
I thought the dams were 5.
So between 3 and 5, I don't know, but again,
Yeah, for all of the projects.
Yeah, that
To
was the
complete, that was.
water, all water, right.
Right.
I think, yes,
Right.
you're right. That was the dams plus the water system improvements, all together.
But that didn't include the work that we're doing with the sewer.
Right.
Because
And-
you didn't
and-
know
and-
that.
Right.
that was new.
That, yeah, cause that's new, the life safety issue, yeah.
And then, so it was based on, you know, real live estimates. And it was gonna be phased in over 6 years. You know, so there's a lot of moving parts. I guess what I just passed out is like a capital improvement. It's Village of Malvern, which is about Nassau County, Long Island, is about an hour south of here. And it doesn't have to be, we talk about capital project planning or multi-year planning. It sounds like a whole lot more than it really needs to be. Everything can fit on one page. It really can. You know, you just put down, if we're able to kind of, you know, get realistic assumptions about when we think we can do this, and you can kind of intuitively, when we want to do it and when we think, you know, when what needs to be done, what has to get done, or you know. And like I said, we're giving you those rules of thumb before about tax, you know, or expense or incremental cost, you know, to the village. I mean, you can kind of get there. But if we put, you know, say, no, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna phase in the project of the dams. It's gonna start here. We'd like to do we know the curbs are coming. The paving is gonna follow. And then, oh, by the way, in about 5 years, we'll do the boat club. But you know, I don't. So if we're able to see, I don't. You know, I'm just throwing, you know, different kind of scenarios out there. But you see, you know, for a little bitty village, there's a lot of stuff going on, and so we need to, you know, kind of just put all those things. You know, it's easy for me to say, let's just do all this stuff right at once. Let's rip off the Band-Aid right away, and go, and then it's there. Oh, yeah, right. You've already ripped off the Band-Aid. But you know, that's kind of.
When is bonding and banning too much? I mean, when does your liability
It's
become an
it's a
issue
good
where,
question.
God forbid, there's some kind of unforeseen
Problem in the village that now there's no money to run your budget, plus you have all these bonds and bans hanging over your head.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
what I talk about the you know, the threshold for paying. I mean, you're going to, you know, the debt limit of the village, and it's based on 7% of your average full valuation. So so if you add up all the properties in the village, it's about $300 million. So it's 7% of that. So it's $21 million. Now, does anybody approach that? No. You know, and I'm not suggesting go take on 21 million, but that's the debt limit. Okay, so you know you have, and actually, take it for what it's worth, but by local finance law, the water and sewer project is excludable from your debt limit. So the fact
still,
is,
you still have to pay.
yes, exactly. So and that's why I said take it for what it's worth. So I mean, so but it still comes from user fees, and it's other than ad valorem taxes. So that's why I guess that's
a little easier.
yeah. And so, you know, so the debt profile as it stands right now is very low, and it's being paid off fast. Like I said, you have that $200,000 coming off. And so, but it doesn't, I mean, I guess I don't know if there's a good answer. Adding all that, and if we added up all that service, and again, I don't know what we can contemplating with the firehouse, but, then you're starting to really take it on. I'm sitting in the chair, I said, ooh, that's a little bit
Well,
much.
I mean, the other, obviously, you spoke about the debt service that we had back, and at that point in time, we were 8, 9, 10% tax increase to get that down. Well, those days are not only gone, but,
Right.
with the tax cap, they're pretty much
Right.
illegal without passing, local legislation.
Right.
So, how are we supposed to balance?
Right,
Our tax cap was 1.6 last year.
Right.
I mean, that's about $35,000. I mean, that's not even a salary.
I know.
So all the villages that you deal with, what are they doing? What can we do? I mean, that's,
Yeah, no, it becomes a problem. I don't know that there's a good answer. I know that, so, I mean, a lot, and I don't know what the percentages are, but a lot are blown past that cap, right? I
right,
mean,
and we're not, but,
Right.
I mean, what your choice is, you stay below the cap and let everything fall apart, and
Right.
then,
Yeah,
Well, right now, from year to year, our bans are, what, 16 or $24,000 in debt service for the,
well, we took on the sewer last year, so, between the water and sewer, it's gonna be
Went up a
approximately
bit.
total about 50 to 60. I mean, it was about, you're right, about 25 each,
Each,
28
yeah.
each, or so,
well, I
and
know,
then,
what is it, like 10 or 15?
It's
yeah,
20 and 24,
right.
and then, the principal payment, I think we put in for a principal payment on both the water and the sewer.
This year.
So,
This year.
for how long can we, are we permitted to kind of just go from year to year and like limp along with bans for different projects?
It's
And
it's a good question.
And can we, we already added a project to the ban we are carrying now, and that bumps us up to 50, but it's not, doesn't get us close to 7%, and it keeps us under the cap.
Well, that's water and sewer, so that has nothing to do with the cap.
And so those can be excluded. But if we have access to this low rate, and we have access to it from year to year, is it something that we can continue to do and
Well, there is risk. I mean, ultimately, you probably want to, just lock it in and forget this, because it does cost every time to do this, right? So, and it is subject to interest rate risk, so it's not gonna stay like this forever.
Right, but the
original
runoff
plan
cost
when
is-
the original plan when we did the water ban was that we were gonna keep it in bands
Mhm.
until we did the dams. And then once we were ready to do the dams, then we would move into bonds at that point, because then we would be done.
Right.
And our thought process at the time was because we do have that 200,000 in the water fund that we're paying out for a bond payment now, that we wanted to get a little bit closer to the end, because for us to have to pay out two
Right,
large
right.
bond payments from the water fund would be difficult, and that we'd have to use our fund balance to do that. There would be no other way that we'd be able to do that. Now, because we've stayed in them for so long, and we're getting closer to the end of that. So that's really gonna become a non-issue almost, because by the time we get into bonds, I mean, it's already 14-15, 17-18 fiscal year, that's gonna be done.
Yeah, and it was, ultimately, when it was all said and done, there was gonna be an increase. It's not like the 200 was gonna cover everything.
Right.
But what will the 200 cover? I mean, what will that get us?
So, about 2/3 of it.
I'm sorry, and what is that total figure for 2/3? I mean, what is?
So again, if it's 5, what was it gonna be again? It was gonna be 4. It was gonna be 4 million total. Which I'm just talking water now. I'm just talking water, because the sewer, we have 1.3 plus it was gonna be a total of another 2.5 or 3.5 on the dams. It's gonna be about 4 million,
Right.
right? So again, rule of thumb about 75,000 per million. So that's 300,000. You have 200,000 coming off, so 200. So it would be another incremental cost of about another $100,000.
For the dams alone?
The dams and the
Everything in the
water.
water fund.
And the
Oh,
water.
and what we're
In the
paying.
water fund. But what we're looking to focus on now is general fund, and that speaks to the question about the tax cap and how are people doing that. And there's I just don't have a good answer. I mean, obviously that you can't, like you said, you can't ignore these things you can't ignore these things forever, and, you know, the smaller villages are having a very difficult time in coping with that, because 2% doesn't turn into anything.
It's not even 2%,
Yeah,
which makes it worse.
yeah.
Yeah, the hard part is really, you know, how long are you gonna get these bids for these low interest rates? That's, you know, really the key.
Yeah, but, you know, on an annual basis, you really don't really see, when you convert to bonds, and let's just say the rates go from 3.75 to 4.25, on an annual basis, you don't feel it all that much. You know, it does add up over time, so you always wanna be able to, you know, get that low when you can. You know, but again, the bottom line is that it seems kinda, it seems significant, you're not getting any help anywhere else. So, you know, like I said, I can't say that I have any good answer. That becomes a policy decision as to whether or not we wanna, you know, increase taxes at the, you know, to that level.
Do you?
Yeah, raise taxes, it don't fix nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's very little. I mean, as you can see, I mean, you know, there's, again, on the grand scheme of things, we know that, you know, the village has done a tremendous job over the past 5 years, getting back to the level where everybody where you'd be commended for, you know, on these balanced, this balanced approach. You know, I don't know where you grab from, you know, so, that becomes the issue.
When we're doing water and sewer and dams, is that exclusively coming through out of the water? Through the water
Mhm.
district? Okay.
But even that, I mean, so we're raising,
We're raising water rates.
yeah, you're raising service fees, so, okay, you're not raising taxes, you're raising service fees. I mean, ask the average person here, a raise is a raise, whether it's a taxation or a fee, and who wants to?
This might be the incentive to discuss parking meters.
I wish we got more for the growth.
Yeah.
Or new developments that might be coming on. Yeah, well, there's a way to kind of ease into it though a little bit. You know, certain things can get done. It's just a matter of, you know, that's what I'm saying. Like that. You know, it may be just a phased in thing where other things kind of come on. It's you don't want to do it all at once. You just can't stomach it, and you know, and that's I don't blame you.
Can we phase in bonding the bond, or bonding?
Well, it's the same thing. I generally speaking, it doesn't really work all that well, but you can, you know, for little amounts. What I'm saying is, you know, because we have that ban is already outstanding, you can,
Right,
I
you know,
and then we can
that.
convert that to a bond,
Right.
and then, you know,
But once
revisit this.
that's locked in and we're bonding a much larger
Yeah.
amount of money, that, you're not saying that that's a number we can keep adding to over time, right?
No. I think you have to come to a determination about what we're gonna do over the next, you know, say 3 years.
Right.
And it should be noted that bans, for whatever reason, for water and sewer can be renewed indefinitely. Whereas for other general fund projects, anything that's supported by ad valorem taxes, only up to 5 years. So, you know, I think going forward, how this would kind of work out is that if you decide to do nothing, we'd probably just convert the 2.9 million to bonds. And when it comes due in May. And then we start the clock again with, because sometimes then it becomes, you know, a risk thing. And then we can start the clock again if you're gonna choose to do the dams, kind of going forward. If you wanna do a little piece of something, like I said, maybe just the curbs, you know, you just add to this ban.
If we were to add to it for the curbs, would then our 5 years start from that point?
Yeah, on the curb piece,
Just on the curb?
yes.
Okay.
And, you know, or we start, I mean, listen, just because you wind up paying more, you know, on the bans, is not the end of the world. I mean, if that's what you choose to do in terms of phasing, you know, like start the bans with the curb project. I mean, you know, convert this to bonds and be done with it, lock it in, you're done, you know, you fix costs for the rest, you know, for the rest of the time. And then, you know, start up again, you know, if it's not gonna be till, say, next year or so. Or the year after, you start, you know, phasing in these projects, you know, with bans, and then adding new ones, you know, as you go, and then, When it's all said and done, then you convert that, to bonds at that time. I'm trying to make it more efficient too. Like I said, it's hard to get bids and decent rates on smaller amounts. Another thing that's an obstacle for us. And a $500,000 bond or $200,000, that gets even worse. I mean, at least they'll take the bands and, so, ideally, you try to make it efficient, but, things don't necessarily work out that way.
And the $75,000 debt service for every million is
That's based on a 20-year, yeah.
It's annually,
Yeah.
based on 20.
On 20 years, yeah.
I think we need to get a update from Greg about where we are with the whole dam project. Yeah, the dam project. I know that the connection to the aqueduct, it has happened, or it was
No.
about to happen.
For final design phase from DEP. So now it's timing for them to give us a green light. That money's included, we have the money for that, right, that's in this ban? Well, that one's not,
Not the dams.
not that, the hookup is
The
not.
hookup
Oh,
for
the
the
hookup
aqueduct.
The hookup is, right?
But the whole project with the dam is
connection is-
dependent upon that
right.
hookup.
Right. Right, because we can't shut
Right.
down our
Yeah.
dams until we have that.
Right.
But that money is, luckily, that's not a cost.
Well,
It
it's
is not approved or
it's already
spoken
in
for.
it's already in the money that we have outstanding.
What about and how many of the other larger dam projects are spoken for, banded? None of them?
Nothing, no. And those costs may be adjusted now because I know Greg and the water crew did a lot of the work themselves in terms of clearing and some of the cosmetic stuff that needs to be done.
Right. Yeah, the recapping of
And I mean,
spillways,
there's-
there's no way around
And
that.
there's an insurance piece to this because our policies are dependent upon us doing work to rectify the issues that are identified up there.
Yeah, I know what purpose. Right, so so it was all in supposed to be 3.5, and it was,
When you say all in, are you
3.5,
talking about-
just on the water,
The water
it was we were looking over 6 phases we called it, but again, I part of that was, just based on trying to ease into it as well. But that's basically what it was, the water mains had started in 11, and then we took the dams would start phasing in by now.
Yeah,
It was approximately, it started off, there was 140,000 the first year, then 430, then 600, then 120, and again, these are old numbers though, but that's basically how much you needed annually, 150, 140, 436, 120, 460, and then the last piece was 800.
And that was based on the project that we approved.
Well, any more questions?
No, I mean, until we have identifiable plans and numbers for the capital improvements to the firehouse, the boat club, or whatever else we have, I think it's kind of a moot conversation to have right now.
Thanks for clearing up that we can't afford it.
Yeah, well, I think it was helpful. Sometimes you just need a little reassurance, I guess. I don't know what it is. But no, this is good though. Honestly, we don't do this enough. We don't sit in front of boards. I don't deliberate it as much as you guys do. I just, every once in a while, to check in with someone and they'll say, yeah, still thinking about it. I'm 42, so it's a marathon for me.
You're aging
I'm
enough.
it's a marathon. If I was 62, I'd say, come on, guys, we gotta go. But I'm gonna be doing this for a long time, so whatever the village decides, it's gonna be the right thing to do. So I'm more than happy to come. I commend you, like I said, for trying to revisit this as much as you possibly can. We don't sit with enough villages. They try to just fly by the seat of their pants,
Not Cold Spring.
No.
Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having me.
Very
Good
much.
seeing everybody again.
Thank you.
Well, have me back soon. All right, Mike, we'll see you.
Bring
Yeah,
money
take
when you
care.
come back.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good night.
Next, review timeline for RFP for auditing service.
Should be in the,
Excuse me?
you guys have the RFP.
Yep.
Does that timeline look comfortable?
Oh, you prepared it.
So this is what we had last time?
It's similar timing, we did it in a different time of the year, but this timing is similar. We might have made some things a little bit, time period a little bit shorter because some things we learned from last time we did it, we didn't need so much time.
So you want us to approve to put out the RFP, ASAP?
Motion to issue the RFP for a 3-year contract for external auditor for the village.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll put that out for you. Next, approval of bills. Anybody have any other things for Alan? Good one to stay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks for coming.
Okay.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Mary.
I'll make the motion to approve the bills as ordered today.
Discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Next, Cold Spring Boat Club regarding removal of building during coal tar remediation. Okay, so, have here a letter from the boat club. Members of the boat club requested the village review options for encapsulation of the coal tar beneath the club building rather than raising the building. Because the original plan was for 100% remediation of the site, demolition of the club structure was accepted as necessary and proper without complaint by the membership. Recently, however, we have learned that full complete remediation is no longer being contemplated, and as a result, the members unanimously voted in favor of asking the village to reconsider the demolition. Membership would like to have encapsulation of the subsurface tar around the boat club building explored as an option. Given that the DEC has said that they intend to prevent any drift of the tar northwards by driving steel sheets into New Street, it should also be possible to simply drive those sheets around the club building and achieve the same result. This approach was taken successfully during marathon remediation around the outflow pipe under the village dock. As you no doubt understand, having to replace a building will impose a tremendous financial burden on the members. Furthermore, such a project would require a lengthy review and approval process in addition to construction time. Membership appreciates the time that you have taken to evaluate our request, and we look forward to hearing back from you. With that, I have reached out to Chisano from the DEC. Mayor Falloon, the department is in receipt of the Cold Spring Boat Club letter dated October 10th, 2014. That was forwarded to my attention by the Village of Cold Spring Clerk by email November 5th. In summary, the letter is requesting that the village reconsider demolition of the club building structure during implementation of remedial action. As such, the department is now requesting that the village make known their position on the issue as soon as possible. The request obviously raises significant concerns for the department, since it has spent months of time and tens of thousands of state dollars in additional investigation and engineering to design the expanded rod remedy specifically requested by the village. Please recall that the village detailed their position and related concerns over the rod remedy in letters to the department on 9/6/13, 1/31/14. Furthermore, to support the position, the village passed a resolution January 2014 to condemn the boat club building structure. With that being said, the department is proceeding with the remedial design completion that includes the demolition of the building as previously confirmed within the village. If the village's position has changed regarding the demolition of the building, a formal letter from the mayor's office using the mayor's letterhead must be submitted ASAP before the state expends any more resources on the project. In the meantime, we anticipate that our written comment to regularly communicate between the parties will continue. Thank you for your time and prompt attention to this matter. With that, I also then followed up. Okay, here was my I wrote to Dave, thank you for your reply. Although it reads as somewhat non-committal, I completely understand and respect your position within the project. I do have a couple of follow-up questions. Who is responsible for the cost of any cleanup required if we choose not to remove the building to clean under the structure? And since there is not a 100%, okay, that got cut off. Cleanup proposal by you and the sheet piling that is going into New Street and into the yard of the boat club to stop the flow of contaminants or shore up non-excavated earth. And although he was out of the office, he did reply, as previously indicated in a letter to the village, the department is responsible for the completion of the remedial program as outlined in the February 2010 ROD under the state Superfund program. Any future site development activities and funding for those activities conducted outside of the scope of the ROD or expanded ROD will not be the responsibility of the department and shall be required to be performed in accordance with site management plan previously incorporated as part of existing environmental easement. Secondly, the sheet piling being installed as part of the remedial activities is required to shore up the excavations and will be removed once disturbed areas are backfilled with clean soil. So that is where we're at. That came in 3 o'clock today. Like I said, Dave Chisano is out of the office, but he did reply. So as it appears to me, if we choose to not complete what the ROD has stated, it appears that we would be responsible for that remediation. Again, he did not, I guess we can follow up further. I know one of the other questions that we need to ask is, there is a lack of 100% cleanup that he didn't reply to.
Is that already addressed in the ROD?
Which,
The question, the extent of the.
yeah, the ROD is
I mean,
less than 100% cleanup.
Right, but we've already, we've had all this discussion.
Oh, yes.
Okay. I'm just interested, it says here in the letter from the boat club that recently the boat club learned that the remediation is, a full and complete remediation is no longer being contemplated, and that sounds like new information to the boat club, but it doesn't sound like it's new to the ROD. And so, do you know what that, wherefore that difference? Between the ROD and the understanding of
What?
our neighbors?
Well, I just recall when we were down at the VFW hall and we were all supportive of the cleanup and Mayor Quinn was saying that the village wanted it all gone. We were all supportive of 100% cleanup. We didn't want anything behind. We have an opportunity at this time to take advantage of the DEC coming and doing this for us. As time has progressed on and we've met with more and more engineers and drillers, we're learning that 100% was never feasible. We were led under the impression that, hey, the village gonna come down, we're gonna clean this whole place up, and the village is gonna be free of this coal tar. That's not the case.
I actually think, I mean, with respect, I think you're paraphrasing a little bit. I mean, I remember that meeting, and the meeting was about the ROD and the question of whether or not the building was gonna come down. I think that everybody in the community supports removing 100% of the materials. But I think that part of the decision for the board has been to weigh the risks and expenses in the future to the village if the DEC isn't given the opportunity to take as much as it can. And I know I mean, we all know that the ROD documents that as much as it can is not 100% of the material. So.
Yeah, and there's known areas, New Street, in front of the pump station on the boat club that they're not even going near touching, which is closer to the waterfront. We have bulkhead, and we submitted images to you that has large holes in it. It doesn't seem to be a concern about the mitigation of that moving around, especially with the tidal water.
I think that is an issue that's come up recently that really does need to be addressed by the DEC because those holes are substantial.
I have more pictures in case you don't have them in color photos. I mean, they're massive. And if we're really that concerned about coal tar mitigating and migrating, I mean, I can't understand how this project can go forward without even addressing that.
And these are, I'm sorry, and these are,
This is the big.
these are areas that are not, right, but these are areas that are not being contemplated by the ROD, is that what you're
Correct.
saying? Okay.
Correct.
I think initially they don't deal at all with your bulkhead on the waterfront.
No, and there is coal tar from the earlier, and I'm going back a couple of years, I remember the map, there's coal tar, samplings all through that area. Especially over in the grass by the pump station, up and down New Street, all along, I mean, we had a lady in gentleman say it was coming up there some a block over in their basement, so we know it's there. It seems like we're choosing the easiest way to, we're going for the coal tar that's the furthest from the river, what it seems
There's
like.
an apocryphal tale about the sump pump. I remember
Yeah.
chatting with Dave Shisano about that, and he was interested.
I remember vividly understating it, because I was like, that's coming up in your basement, that's pretty, those views were noxious, I mean,
Right,
you would,
whose home had that?
I don't
Was-
want to speculate, I'm not sure. who it
Oh,
was.
okay.
don't
I
know
thought
who
you were
it
saying you knew who
No, but I was at the meeting when they made that statement, and they stood up. And the other thing, the reason why, as we explored the options, I mean, I know that the village was pressured, they had to get a letter to DEC by January 1st, 31st, some date like that. We then later, I lived through the marathon cleanup, which was a heavy metal cleanup, nickel cadmium. The course of action that the village took and supported with the DEC was encapsulation. They encapsulated the old Cold Spring dock, the outflow pipe, I mean, you own that. You own the nickel cadmium that's below that. We're not saying don't address the coal tar, encapsulate it, drive the sheeting around it. It was good enough for nickel cadmium, why can't it be good enough for coal tar? Seal it in. I mean, coal tar, listen, it's ironic that you can go to Home Depot and buy a 5-gallon pail and put it on your driveway, but you can't put it below the earth. You can pour it all over Cold Spring, the bank had theirs done, the whole town stunk for a week, their driveway sealed, but, we're talking about stuff that's 10, 15, 20 feet down. Drive sheeting, encapsulated around, no one's coming in contact with it. And just a side note, progressing forward, sorry, but we've lost about 20, 25 members already this year, due to the future rate increases that are gonna be incurred. We're gonna have rate increases anyway, to be honest, because we are looking at the bulkhead ourselves too, because something has to be done in the future, whether the DEC gets involved or not. So we're, like you guys would be fiscally responsible, we're trying to set up our own kind of reserve fund to address whatever topics come our way, whether it's a building, the bulkhead itself, but there's some major expenditures coming our way.
In January of last year, I had spoken to Dave Shisano about the sump pump and about the other observations. Utility workers were said to have observed this, and I'm just going to my email here because Dave Shisano reached out to Ralph, and he asked to be provided with this information so that he could follow up. He was very concerned. And when I followed up on the instances, I was told, somebody confirmed for me that the sump pump report was a rumor. And Dave Shisano got back and said that he didn't,
Somebody might be worried their house is gonna get torn down.
oh, maybe.
It's not a rumor, I remember the lady, the husband and wife standing up, saying at the meeting, it wasn't a rumor. They stated it, it was their home.
Well, did they got, and did they speak
It
with
was
the?
on video, I'm sure you can go back in the records and find it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was recorded, that meeting, I was there,
Okay,
a lot of people were,
all right.
wasn't a rumor.
I think think at the time, the question of whether or not, to take down we were concerned about the question of taking down the building, and I think that there were people who were concerned that if they said there was coal tar, they would take down the building and, or don't say there's coal tar. And then there, you know, if there are incidents of this, and Dave Chisano, I mean, at least Dave Chisano and his colleagues have been down at the boat club, and you've spoken to them?
Mhm.
And, and,
throughout several stages of this process.
and have you, and has he, have you asked him about the bulkhead and about these instances of?
We've brought the subject up several times. In fact, one time they had their, and I don't know if it's still using that firm, but they had one of their site engineers that designed the remediation, and there was talks of possibly having to address that because they still haven't come back with how they're gonna remove the contamination, whether it's gonna be via truck or barge. Obviously, if it goes out by barge, they would have to address that issue.
And that was another issue that was raised with him last time I spoke with him, was about the railroad bridge being able to support the weight of taking material from the waterfront. And I think they were leaning more towards the barge removal.
That's gonna come, you know, they're the engineers, and it's also, I'm sure there's a cost element they have to weigh out also.
The DEC, they'll, when they come back with the engineering, they'll put the project out to bid. The bidder has the right to specify how he will remove. So the DEC will not, they will not state whether it's going over the bridge or over the rail or out by the barge. They're just gonna put out the bid process, and then the bidder, if they have a way it's cheaper for them to barge it out, that's what their choice.
Yeah, that's how.
And the ironic part about the engineer, when we spoke to him, he had no idea that there was a potential weight issue with the bridge. So it's a constant current, you know, they're not all on the same page.
The engineering's supposed to be done by February, I believe, in the last notes I have.
Well, that's why we wanted to get our letter as promptly
Right.
to you as possible, because
So if there's any change to this, of course, they don't want to invest any more money with any of the engineering, or they'd rather put it towards another phase of the actual process.
And we brought it up because one of the original plans was when the building wasn't come down, they were gonna drive sheet behind the building. They're gonna contain it, and that was more to stabilize the structure of the building itself, but also acted like a containment.
Was it in April they did borings around?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
And so those borings, my understanding was that those borings were intended to detect the existence of tar.
I'm not 100% sure, because I was talking to a couple of drillers, a lot of those borings, and I'm not sure if it was the April ones, but a lot of, any ones subsequent to that, were to test the strata of the earth, to determine, how, maybe the compaction of soil, and what they would have to do to stabilize the soil. So they assured us, when they came down, they weren't drilling for coal tar, they were drilling to test the strata of the earth to see how they would have to design the cleanup.
And I think that's accurate because they left those cores
Yeah.
in the parking lot for days at a time, so
Yeah.
if it was polluted material, I couldn't imagine.
That was to determine where they would have to put their sheeting and how deep they could go and what phase, that's how it was explained to us.
Is that the rod?
Yes. I mean, as you guys have obviously found that, the idea that it's good to knock it down and rebuild is no longer a viable option because you can't afford to rebuild the building, is that kind of?
It's posing some challenges. I don't wanna rule it out, but it's definitely posing some unique challenges.
If you weren't having the financial challenges, would you be here this evening
Yes.
asking to
We had
get
this
the-
standpoint from the beginning. We got behind it when we were under the, let's get it all. Let's clean this place up once and for all. In all honesty, what are they gonna get? 30%, 40%? I haven't heard any numbers above
I'm
50.
not an engineer, I can't.
No, they don't know either. They really don't know until they start digging.
Mhm.
They can design and engineer all they want. They really won't know until they actually show up and perform it. So, you know, that
I mean, I-
idea of, hey, let's get it all out of here and Cold Spring's happy, you know, isn't the truth.
I have tons of questions, because this predates me being on the board, but, I mean, was the original plan to encapsulate, or was it always to tear the
The
building?
original plan was to leave the building and excavate the parking lot. Then the village asked to expand it to take the building down. That was the original ROD was written leaving the building.
There was
That
like
was the
four
most,
alternatives.
most cost-effective option.
And least impactful on the community and disruptive. They did the air quality monitor, there's no health risks inside of our building or around the area. The DEC did not request to take the building, no, the village did.
Well, I think that it wasn't that the village was requesting to take the building down, the village was asking for a wider remediation, a larger area to be remediated as a consequence of the building. I mean, I don't think anybody up here wants the building to come down.
I think you'll agree with me, the village thought they were probably gonna get more out of it than what's coming our way. More of a cleanup. We're leaving it by the water, we're leaving it in the road, we're, you know.
That is a question I had. If they're pulling the sheet metal pilings out of New Street when they leave, how is that considered? I mean,
It was explained to us they were gonna cut them off on a 45-degree angle and pave over them, and that's how it was described to us by the engineers, but, you know, Dave would know better than I.
record of decision that Rob just read though says that they're removing them,
Okay.
so.
Well, you know, what they write up, do one thing, do another.
I mean, to be honest, but my dealings with Dave and the DEC, just to try to get answers for you guys about what you're doing with your equipment during the construction and when the start times are. I mean, I'm shocked that you got 3 emails and.
Well, everything's non-committal, as the mayor said. We can't get an answer on who's still paying for the storage of the boats, the equipment, how you getting the workload out of there, who's cutting it up and welding it back together. I mean, nobody will commit, and we've been doing this for 2 years now. But we're gonna go ahead with this project. All we keep hearing is we'll work with you. And no one will put anything right.
Well, again, the writing part was the fact that they had other projects other than this one in New York State that they had concerns with funding. So when they looked at the full remediation, which is one of their alternatives from the get-go, it covered the entire site down there, which right out to the bulkhead, and that's what you spoke about at the very beginning. Then it went to 20%, which is just the parking lot, then it went to underneath the building, and then shortly out front of the building, it was really down to a level of 12, 14 feet. That's where the water table comes into play, where it's not something they want to really consider doing. And that's just in a nutshell, but when you come down to the actual, the amount of contamination under the building is the most recent test they did. Very similar to what's in the parking lot.
I think we have some more unanswered questions that Chisano needs to address.
So will you wanna continue?
I think we should
follow?
bring him here,
Excavation area.
put him on the spot. And I mean, I would completely recommend that we all,
Another Bill Ottaway meeting?
yeah, well, I mean, everybody,
Can we get copies of the?
yeah, we have
So,
that.
well, I think that's a worthwhile exercise. I
Yeah,
think
and
that a lot of members of the community.
absolutely, and have these questions, and, you know, as you heard from our financial advisor, we're not, absolutely not not willing to replace the boat club if you guys don't. I mean, that is obviously, something that, we will consider, but as we know, there's, not a lot of money out there, but, so we need to get the questions answered, and then, if it comes down to, cause for some of the board members, there's 2 pieces for the cost. One is pay now to rebuild the building for a cleaner site, or take the chance and say, we don't have the money to build the boat club, you don't have the money to build the boat club, we can't take it down, and then pray that we don't have to pay later. So I mean, it's not, it's not as easy as you know, just deciding, hey, you know what, there's no money, let's not clean up underneath it, and then, God forbid, we get
But the pay
taxed.
later, I don't understand because they would contain it. I mean, you're not paying later on the Cold Spring dock, are you planning on a bill of a new cadmium and nickel remediation?
I'm not
No.
planning on any of that,
No,
but that
that's
doesn't mean
what
it
I'm
won't
saying.
happen.
So, we're not leaving it, we're containing it, we are doing a cleanup, we're containing it.
Containing and cleaning are not the same, but I understand what
You
you're
know
saying.
what I'm saying?
Sure.
It's not like we're saying just leave that area alone and let's just
Right.
pray nothing happens.
Right, no, because it's encapsulated, it
Right.
is, but, you know, as we spoke earlier, you know, if building burns down, that slab that's there now probably wouldn't hold a new building. So, you know, that's not out of the realm of saying, oops, you know, it actually did happen. I mean, if it was a very solid, slab that you could build on again, it would also be easier to say that. I mean, you know, maybe that's one of their options, maybe they build a new slab, so it's, you know, good forever. So, I mean, I think we have some questions that, you know, and again, we're not saying that we won't change our mind, we're not saying we will, but we will work with you to find out. And at the same time, you know, Alan had, you know, spoke into our, the money guy, you know, knowing that this is something that is a very, you know, this is a project, a rebuilding project that is on the top of our to-do list. Cause it's easier if we can clean it up and rebuild. But, you know, all the taxpayers, you know, I guess it's about where the money goes. So, what we'll do is we'll do another public meeting with Gisano, and you'll I would recommend that you get your official questions from you guys, you know, and then, you know, all of us can get the questions we want answered and meet again.
I mean, I wanna hear mostly from residents in that area, that if they feel safe or could live there if it was encapsulated, just like the dock is. So I think that was one of the major pushes.
I mean, most of the
for
residents in that area probably live with it right under their house.
Yeah.
I mean,
So, I mean,
let's be
that-
honest here,
Exactly.
it's that whole area,
Yeah.
so I mean, if they're really concerned, knock your house down, dig up your yard.
And I mean, I see
Sell.
two alternatives here. And I mean, without, I'm assuming they went and they cored and they know the exact boundaries of this, but from what I'm hearing, they haven't. So,
Well, they do know the exact boundaries. I think what happens is with anything else, anytime they can get away, especially now that the downturn came to them, anywhere they can save money, they're trying. So their excuse to us, you know, like it or not, is that, well, you know, the amount and the depth out by the bulkhead doesn't really affect what's going on, so we don't feel there's a reason to address it. And most of us believe that they just don't wanna
well, it
fix
makes
the bulkhead and fix it right.
well,
And they don't wanna get 100% because it would take all excavation and bulkheads and, you know, and in the very beginning, when they had money, they were gonna knock down the building and put it back up.
But looking at the holes in the bulkhead, it doesn't surprise me that they're not finding coal tar there
No, 'cause
because
it's all gone
washed
already.
out in the river.
Yeah.
So,
So for them, it's they can wash their hands. Anything below 15 feet, they're not even looking at, except for under the oil club. So, I will follow up with Dave and get a public meeting as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, there's copies of everything, the site
Yeah.
management plan that goes back right from any part of the construction that was ever discussed right down to a contingency plan, which covers pretty much what we talked about tonight, you know. And a lot of this has already been looked at, but for them to relook it, it's gonna take exactly what.
Well, I mean, re-looking at it is fine because they should already have the answers. And for a lot of us, it's either the questions weren't ever answered soundly, or we're gonna ask them again until, you know, we get the answers we want.
Until they change the answer.
Yeah. You know, and you know, if it's not okay to leave 100%, why is it not okay to leave 30%?
Right.
That type of, you know, because they're valid questions.
Well, I think it's definitely worthwhile to have people who are engineers come and speak to us instead of speculating about,
Yeah.
you know, so I think. Is there some sort of a deadline that we're working with to get back to him? Did we-
No, the bid's not even complete. I mean, I would guess February, because that's when they said the bid would be ready to be put out.
Alright. So we have, we're approaching the holidays and something, do you think we can do this before?
I would think sooner than later.
Yeah, as
I
soon
think
as
by
he- as
this
soon as-
January, they're gonna have the engineers working on whatever the final.
Right. I mean, and, you know, keep in mind the request that they're putting out there shrinks the size of the project. So, you know, it's not like we're asking them to make changes that will make the rebid, more costly. It's, you know, it's a matter, I mean, you know, that bid will come way down if they don't have to encapsulate, you know, the tent, you know, they are tenting the whole entire thing. That is new information. That whole excavation will be tented. There'll be no work done in the open. That was, you know, new information to us. That we were never told that. The engineers doing the bid said, you know, let us know. So, you know, that's, you know, another piece that makes it more tenable for the neighbors. It will be completely tented, but, you know, cut the tent down to size. It's actually cheaper to do for them. So, the earliest he can give us a meeting is when we'll have it.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Correspondence?
Send, can you make a note for Mary to send this to us?
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Sure.
First piece of correspondence, we have a letter from a resident, dated October 29th. Dear Mayor, I'm writing you about the late fee of my last water bill. I wrote a note to your office indicating why it was late. Ever since the post office has been relocated, I have been having problems with my mail delivery. One of my neighbors from Springbrook had given me my water bill and stated that it was mixed with her mail. Unfortunately, this was after due date of my water bill, which was late. My neighbor also never received their water bill, and they are in the same situation. I've never been late on my water and sewer bill, and I'm sincerely asking for a late fee to be waived. Couple comments. Number one, we did look back, and it is true, they had never been late on their water and sewer bill. Also, Mary did look into this, and it is also true that they have been experiencing mail problems down there. I know every time we do this,
I think we've done this before.
we have done this in the past, and you know, we discuss about not setting a precedence.
And then we look to precedent to guide us.
Right.
All anybody has to do is go on one of the local Facebook groups and you can see how bad mail delivery is.
Yeah.
People complain about it every day.
I'd like to make a motion that we waive the late fee for this
Second.
resident.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Cold Spring Pizza is gonna have a liquor license. It all goes according to plan.
Next is there is
Cold Spring Pizza.
this office represents the above subject applicant with their license application for the premises so captioned as required by the ABC law, section 64, subdivision 2A, I. On their behalf, I'm notifying you that their intent to file an application for a liquor license with the New York State Liquor Authority, pending a waiver from municipality. 30 hold before said application can be filed is mandated by the State Liquor Authority. The waiver to this hold is an option. Please refer to the attached simple waiver and provide same on your letterhead. Please feel free to contact this office should you have any questions regarding this notice. Another thing that we try to accommodate the local
I make a
businesses.
motion to,
Wait, so,
This is the
sorry,
new,
did Officer Grant, did we chat with Officer Grant about this? Don't we usually get a high sign from him?
Yeah, there was no,
Okay, good.
yeah, there's no issues.
make a motion to waive the 30-day,
Second.
send a waiver to the liquor authority.
Discussion?
this is the new, owner of the business, is that correct?
Correct.
Yes,
Mhm.
building owners, same.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So approved. something else that I don't have with me. Anyway,
Under correspondence,
yeah,
is that the,
Anything else?
the green book?
no, it's not in here, okay. There was, yesterday I had to attend a meeting we received $174,000 from FEMA from Superstorm Sandy for cleanup and remediation and to move the controls generator to upstream. With that $174,000, that was a 90% grant, with us picking up the remaining 10%. New York State, the Governor's Office, and HUD has put out a program to pick up the last 10%. And all we had to do was attend a meeting, learn and understand the process by which we will apply for that 10%. And it took an hour, the meeting. Unfortunately, there was only 4 people there, so I don't understand why anybody else isn't after this money, but we were one of 4 in the county that were willing to go and sit in. So we will now, appears to be eligible for another $17,000.
And can you explain to us what the process is to have access to this?
It's almost the same as FEMA. What they're looking to do is, they just wanna make sure when applying for the state money, it is HUD money. So a lot of it goes along with the HUD rules. Minority contractors, minority FEMA contractors, if you can reach out and hire low-income residents, all the things that the HUD. Some of the things, the threshold we won't meet are low enough. Other things that we don't have HUD in our area, so we may not be required to. They were very helpful. They gave us all the information we need to work with them. So it appears to be a simple process. They do have site visits. They do have people that will come out and help us. So, it's $17,000 that,
That's great.
yeah, absolutely. So, they did not put out the time frame and when we are allowed to apply versus when we will get paid. But,
So
either
they
way,
said they'll work with us.
they will work with us, and it's $17,000 for her. That's that. Old business, attorney search.
So it turns out we did an RFP last year.
We did not, we just did a search,
We took receipt of interested
parties.
resumes and we reached out to people we knew who recommended.
Okay, so, I guess we can do one of 2 things. We could continue down that same path and, go out and, word of mouth, there's, a few that already applied. Do we wanna do a formal RFP or do we want to, solicit those in the area? I don't know which is I know which is the easier process.
We're gonna need a timeline, and we have,
Yeah, if we do an
Someone from-
RFP, I think we're gonna need someone to be a stopgap. And I think,
Well, it appears there are firms out there that are more than willing to work without even seeing an RFP. So if we wanna go, make life easier, we can try that same route and solicit, or we can go with a formal, drawn out, RFP. And we didn't do an RFP last year, so we would be basically starting from scratch, creating one. So,
You can go
so
on.
you were
Do
word
we-
of mouth?
Yeah, I didn't respond to a RFP. Yeah.
maybe that's why we should get an
I mean,
RFP.
if you need one, I can send you one.
Would you see the help wanted sign in the window?
Let me guess, you
I
were
got
following the
lost.
media and found out that this is a great place to work.
I got lost.
So, yeah, I'm,
Do you wanna interview these people?
So so far we've heard from 3 or 4.
I only have 2.
Bill
I've only
Florence
seen
and,
it was only 2.
oh, okay.
2, that was just through the grapevine, that wasn't even.
Right. Do we wanna ask, there were attorneys that we interviewed, when we were interviewing for your position. Do there were others that we met, do we wanna reach out to them and ask them to come back, or?
Yeah, I think we should,
There's a number of firms around here or nearby. You have your labor council's firm,
Mhm.
Thomas Johan.
Mhm.
Vanderwater does the, Vanderwater's in Poughkeepsie, they practice municipal, there's Lewis and Greer. There's a whole host of, and that's just, within 10 or 15 minutes from here.
Mhm.
Other villages that you know of, RFP or you just solicit?
You don't have to, so it really, it really depends on what their desire is, and there's only 3 villages in the county, so I know in Brewster, it's Herodes and Malay for the Board of Trustees, and then Greg Fulchetti for the Planning Board, and they've been there for
is it Anthony Molay?
Anthony Malay, yeah.
Anthony, you know?
Mm-hmm, yeah. He,
He's the judge in Patterson, he lives in Patterson, yeah.
So you guys, you are familiar with him, do you wanna reach out to,
yeah, he was
Them and ask
interested
them to
in
come
working
I
for
think
the fire department before we got Berlandi. And that was,
And
that's-
Brian Berlin was with Daniels and Porco,
Daniels and
which is
Porco.
now Daniels, Porco, and Lusardi, and he broke off with I think 2 other.
Berlandi did?
Yeah, it's Berlandi, Nussbaum, and I forget who else.
I can reach out to Brian.
do we wanna ask, Pearlson Shaw to come back? We met with them, I think, Mike Lambert, who does Board of Ed stuff, is with them, and there's a fellow who came and met with us,
Yeah, I
who
think,
does municipal,
yeah.
I think Pearlson.
In all reality, how long would an RFP for legal services take?
You're gonna want it out there for 10 days, and you're gonna want, another 10 days to respond back, so.
And in the meantime, in those 20 days, are we sort of prohibited from reaching out to people who we
No, you can
Invite them
call
or
and line people up and get,
interview?
send their phone
Okay.
resume and
Wanna do both?
we'll do both.
Okay.
And I guess really what you wanna ask is the same 2 things that you asked. Or I think my first phone call was with Stephanie, and then I had spoken to Ralph, and we had kinda gone back and forth between, would you offer a retainer,
Right.
and would you offer, or by the hour, and just
Would
put
you
it out.
consider everything?
Yeah, would you consider a retainer, and just do it in such a way that everyone sends you back apples as opposed to apples and oranges,
Yeah.
because that's when it gets hard.
Yep.
Is when you have apples and oranges.
You are prohibited to speak to anybody if they call. Okay, so we'll do that.
So,
I'm
will
in
you
favor
send
of the
us
exact
an RFP?
opposite, talk to everybody so
Yeah,
they know what they're
absolutely.
getting into.
Sure.
Do
To
you-
be honest.
So that they don't leave
Absolutely.
right away, right?
So you'll send us
Run
an
that.
RFP, is that what you said?
I can send you one, if you want one, certainly, if you
Well, I think
guys
if we're
wanna.
going the RFP route, it would be helpful if you would provide us one. We don't have one,
Okay,
is what we're saying.
And you're still here. Thank you.
personal. Well,
Your hours till December 2nd at what, 12:01?
5th, I was gonna stay on until
5th?
Right, make sure
December
that
4th at 11:59 PM, the last email. will
the
be
email
out.
turns off.
I got your personal number.
I really don't have a recommendation for any particular person. It's really gonna come down to, what the proposed rates are, and if you guys feel comfortable with it, someone that you're gonna spend a lot of time with, and, there's gotta be a little bit more than just the money. You gotta trust and like the
Did you
person.
speak to Bill? He sent me a note on that one. Follow up with him.
Bill,
Fine.
I saw the email he sent. I
Okay.
mean, he did a good job for the fire company that we have, and I think he's represented a few people in the village.
Resolution,
Do we wanna set aside do we wanna identify some dates right away that we know we have room for interviews? So is Mike gonna reach out to Bill Florence? And is that what you were saying? You're gonna,
yeah, and we'll
I think
ask-
from his letter, he was amenable to come in whenever we needed him to.
right, but we're only here on Tuesday. Do we wanna identify some Tuesdays that we're here and we wanna do these interviews or?
Let's see, you're at the 5th.
What's the second? Are you meeting next week?
no,
There's no meeting
you're
next
away,
week?
right?
Yes.
You can meet, I don't know.
I think we'll plan, if there's anything not a plan meeting, but if anything comes up that we have to, when it goes away.
The second is already pretty good, isn't it?
I think we have 2 public hearings that night, yeah. And then, are we meeting the, is that the
16th.
16th?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we can
So
start
have we
making.
already, actually, wait, aren't we doing something on the 16th?
We are, but we could, we could set,
We come at 7 o'clock?
yeah, we could do,
Okay.
Do you wanna set one for the second for 7 in the morning, before the public hearing?
I think,
You got your 20 days?
or 20 days from what?
well, we can do the ones, the word of mouth ones that
Oh,
we've
yeah.
already responded, we could those that, are interested, we could still interview them.
do the second at 7 or whatever?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then,
And then the 16th, 15th?
sure, 16th at 7.
Do you want Mary to reach out to Bill and the rest?
Okay. Yeah, why don't we do that?
You have a list that you give her?
Yeah, she has the ones.
Okay.
Resolution regarding the code update committee.
Yeah, you had it in front of you, that was a recommendation to look at revisions to the resolution that we received last week. You can see, the recommended areas
In the packet?
Oh, it's not in here.
I have one, it's one of my packets. It's right, that's it,
That's
yeah,
it,
the
okay.
skinny little letters.
There's only a few, where we deleted.
Resolution 31? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So right now, the mission statement is narrow and specific to the terms of the agreement, the NYSERDA agreement, but one of the ideas that has come up several times is that as the statement of work is now written, it omits certain aspects of a code update that members of the code update committee think are worthwhile looking at. So I don't know if we wanna, it seems sensible to expand the mission to include work that may occur sort of outside the statement of work. But I don't know how broad you want that to, what do you think?
Well, the main point that they wanted to do with the resolution was a couple of key points as far as the 5.11, I believe, just meetings and procedures. That portion they want to change, and I think we see the change there. The other thing that they brought up was, of course, the appointment of Sandy Floon as secretary for the committee. They've also asked the timeline that we look into expanding the timeline because they're concerned whether or not it's the time frame for grant implementation is realistic, and they asked for another quarter, so something we follow up in another so many months towards added on to their timeline. And then we, of course, we discussed, without going into the entire part of their meeting the other night, we discussed budget, which I think Marie has already sat down with Ellen, and I think Stephanie has actually as well. But for the meeting, as far as tonight, I think the main points are to really agree to the, any changes that they wanna make to the resolution. And the appointment of Sandy Floon, as secretary. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and there were some typos Murray early had brought to our attention that, in 5.2, oh, is that what you,
That's
in
what I
addition to the
mentioned.
2 meetings, okay, good.
Yeah, 5.2, that's really
And
Main ones
actually,
are
as a point of clarification, that, removal of this language here that says deleted. This is language that, speaks to the village, code, being updated to include, to make sure committees, all committees, not just the code update committee, is subject to, our expanded interest in complying with open meetings law. And so the recommendation here to remove this is because this should apply anyway, it's not necessary to include this here. And it should be, I mean, it should go without saying all of our committees, whether or not it's in the resolution.
That's under 5.4.
This is the box.
So, the part about the secretary just states in here that there's one assigned.
No, I don't think the resolution actually,
Right.
refers specifically,
Have a secretary appointed by the village board.
Village board.
Okay, so that's a separate issue.
We don't
That's
name
separate.
Sandy. But we could.
Any issues? Good? Okay.
Okay.
And the main point again, the 5.2 is that in addition to a monthly meeting, the code update committee may hold other or additional meetings as may be necessary or desirable. So that was just a change from the last.
Okay. Sure, would somebody like to present the foregoing resolution?
I make a motion to approve resolution number 31-14 as amended by the NYSERDA or rezoning committee.
Second.
Okay. Vote on the foregoing resolution as follows. Trustee Bowman,
Yes.
trustee Campbell,
Yes.
trustee Fatty,
Yes.
trustee Hawkins.
Yes.
I vote yes.
And I make a motion to appoint Sandy Balloon as the secretary to the rezoning committee.
Second.
And,
Discussion?
do we need to contemplate, some sort of a solution if she is not here or able to do the minutes? Is that,
If she's unable
I mean,
to
if-
attend one night,
if she's not,
in Florida, February, you know
Right.
that, yes.
if 4.3 cannot be complied with, is there?
Our alternatives are find us an alternate, or to record it and transcribe it ourselves.
Record it, send it to
Is
Florida.
that-
you can mail it to Florida.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is
What
that
are you doing
be
tomorrow?
documented in,
You could Skype her.
does that have to be
Let her take
documented in the
notes.
resolution?
Or wordproof paper.
There was a, is there a second?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
there was a second.
no discussions. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I vote no.
Oh, your
You
babysitter.
just have to recuse yourself.
I mean, I recuse myself, excuse me.
What's necessary as far as to get the additional time? I want to follow up, that's
The additional,
quarter is what we're asking for, so.
Oh, that's not something, I don't think that's addressed, that's something that's addressed in the resolution, that's something that will be addressed eventually in the contract with NYSERDA.
So, in that process, there's nothing we have to address right away,
There's nothing in the resolution that needs to.
not in the resolution,
Yeah.
no, but you need to contact.
Yes, and there are other changes, the other changes that were being discussed, those will also, so, when
All
the
right, we'll wait
code
for that
update
all to
committee
happen.
lets us know.
okay, is that good for Sarda? Okay, you ready? Here it comes. Okay.
New business.
New business from Green Plan. Dear Mayor Falloon and members of the Village Board of Trustees, enclosed, please find an invoice and voucher for professional services associated with the successfully securing a grant for the village in the amount of $75,000 through the consolidated funding application CFA, process of the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. We were authorized by the village board to prepare the CFA on behalf of the village on July 25th, 2013. When we were notified in 2013 that the village did not have the resources available to pay for the work recommended in the draft local waterfront revitalization program, and that such program would remain unfinished unless the village zoning code was updated, we offered to prepare the CFA grant application without charge. However, we undertook the grant writing work with the express understanding that we would continue as the village planner, and if the grant was obtained, we would perform the planning work to be funded by the grant. Now that the village has decided to no longer use Green Plan for its planning and zoning services, it is only fair that we be paid for our services obtaining the grant. The grant to Cold Spring was obtained solely due to our efforts, and our work on the CFA now allows the village to carry on its LWRP process that began in 2006. We had to drop all our other client work at that time to devote to 2 solid weeks to the CFA application so that the village would be successful in obtaining the funding. Our understanding and that of Stephanie Hawkins was that if the village successfully secured the grant, it would continue to use our services to complete the project until adoption. As a consulting firm, we cannot conduct business under the circumstances unless we receive compensation for our time. Very truly yours, Theodore Fink. So, we do have a voucher from Green Plan for the amount of $7,693.75. Not signed by me, as an approval. And there is a invoice, statement of work, prepare correspondence, review, so this is so I guess they feel the work was done under the auspices that they were going to get the grant. They did not, and now they feel that they should be compensated for the work they did, since they did not, we did not continue to use their services once the grant was accepted by us. So, there are obviously a few things we can contemplate. We can contemplate paying them, not paying them, and take our chances if they want to further pursue, or we never signed a contract with B&L. We could consider letting them do the work. I don't know of any other ideas besides that. Those are just the 3 that came to my mind. I'm not really excited about any of the 3, but unfortunately that is where we're at.
I wanna discuss my opinion for you guys, which is privileged until such time as you guys wanna talk about it, you know, in the open. So I'd like to vet that out a little bit further with you guys, and then have you know, in private. Because I don't wanna say anything that's gonna prejudice, you know, anybody either way, the village, Fink, you know, however. So, I guess the only, for right now, we can, if you want to, for just practical purposes, is, do you wanna go to public comment and then talk after? Or do you wanna just do that right now, have everybody go out, you know, we can leave, everyone else can leave, I just wanna do it in such a way that.
Does it seem like a long conversation that you'll anticipate
No.
on all this?
No, I'll just give you the rationale for my opinion,
Okay.
and then we can discuss any questions that you guys have, and then you guys can decide to do whatever you want after that.
Let's do that.
Okay, we can
Motion to
actually.
go into executive
Can I just,
session.
one question before we move into
Sure.
executive session? Was this part of the LWRP? Was it in the original scope of work?
Was this,
Yeah.
was their application not? In the original scope of work with the Department of State?
With the contract that Ted Fink signed for the work that he did on the LWRP, was NYSERDA a part of that?
No, you know that.
Yeah.
No, but you know that.
Then we can discuss it, because it's pretty clear to me. No cost means no cost.
I would amend that, Michael, by saying that the work that was done for the LWRP, we did that with the assumption that work would be satisfactory to the Department of State. The Department of State last year said, no, it's not enough. And then we got into what more do we have to do, blah, 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 and the CFA, the NYSERDA grant. So when we came to the end of our LWRP work, we thought we had something that would be acceptable and satisfactory, but DOS said no.
The ambiguity is that is in the defined scope for the LWRP work. The goalposts were moved, or the definition of the work was changed. And so that's where you get this gray area where there can be argument about who owes what to whom. But I think in looking at the LWRP, if this was not in, it's not in the original contract, does not appear in the
And
original
that was
contract.
my next question is, as chair of the LWRP, did you direct Ted Fink to prepare this grant?
No, I was not even aware that he was working on it. In fact, my understanding was that it would be an open process where we would select, the village would select people to prepare, to prepare the proposal. I'm not sure there was time to do that, given the total circumstances, but the process did surprise me.
So do you want a motion to
Yeah,
advise the council?
Yeah, yeah, it's weird, because it's not really covered on the OML. If it was, proposed potential, litigation, it would be, but it's not,
Oh, so, wait, so no motion is
No,
necessary? Or-
we can literally
We can
just
move.
excuse ourselves. I
Okay.
can give you some advice, discuss the opinion that I've rendered, and then we can come back out and proceed as normal. So. It's
Really?
bizarre. Yeah, it's the first time I'm in this situation, but it
Because
would
the
be.
planning board's getting beat pretty
No,
hard
I-
right now about a similar situation.
Yeah, no, I think it's worthwhile for us to have the discussion, okay, about the advice. I don't wanna say anything that
Well, but we can discuss what,
when we come out, you can talk about
okay,
everything, you can waive the privilege, you can do whatever you want. All I wanna do is have a brief discussion, and some of the things that I wanna say, I don't wanna have on the record, which could potentially cause any liability for the village. And that's why I wanna have a discussion with you guys in private, under the attorney-client privilege, right? After that, you guys can do whatever you want. You can come out, you could say, this is exactly what I said, you can do that, that's all on your own, but I don't wanna waive that for you, essentially. So we literally need 2 or 3 minutes, that's it.
I don't have a problem, I mean, and we can go in the other room so everyone doesn't even have to leave. Or, I mean, is that something that you don't want to do?
If you don't want to, you don't have to.
Doesn't
You
matter
can-
to me.
you can, it's up to you guys.
Is it in the village's interest to have a conversation with you behind closed doors
Yes.
right now? Okay.
Yep.
Then I think we should.
It's all right. You guys wanna continue on out of, go ahead.
Make a motion.
You're supposed to make a motion.
Okay, so, what we did is, we discussed with our attorney, whether, there was any liability or not. And in that discussion, we don't want to publicly say, because whether it could hurt, help, either one, but we did discuss any liability, if there is any liability. And we feel at this point in time, the best course of action is, entertain a motion to table it and have a conversation with Mr. Fink and see what, the seriousness of his invoice, and if we can work with him in any way, so.
Second?
Okay, in favor? Excuse me, discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So, have anything else? Public comment? Please.
Yeah, hi, Rich Franco. Just wanted to make sure you all know that, you have a public, composting facility now.
There was a letter you submitted, correct?
Yeah,
Is there no?
I don't know if you realize it's a reality, and that there are rules and regulations that go along with it. I put some information together, and it's kind of serious if you don't pay attention to the rules and regulations. So I would advise you look into it.
Okay, you have a meeting with the town coming up on the 4th?
Yeah.
Okay, if we could, I'd like to put you on an agenda following that meeting to see where you got with them and how this all ties together with us. And again, my apologies, I wasn't looking to blow you off for tonight.
Yeah.
I just, with the agenda, I didn't know what it was gonna be like. And I know it's a little uncomfortable to do in public comment when we could have had you on the agenda, but I want you, we'd like to have you on the agenda, so
Yeah.
if you could, see how it goes with the town and then,
It was
probably
just-
better formalize the proper, policies and procedures regarding that. I mean, composting, I think is, it's a
Well,
reality and I think it should be done properly. We don't have the facilities, but we do have the leaves and whatnot to, add to the composting, so I think,
That's what I'm trying
Mhm.
to get at.
Sure,
You are doing it now.
accidentally on purpose, I guess we are, yeah.
No. I found a place to do it, and you are doing it, and it's legal. Okay, you're doing it
That's a
at
good
the,
start.
at the old Phillipstown
Mhm.
landfill.
Correct.
Okay, I talked to Richard, he gave permission,
Mhm.
so Ed and I made arrangements, so it's happening. As long as the whole board knows,
When is your meeting with the town?
the 4th.
We would allow us to follow up with that.
Okay, whenever you,
And I'll ask you or, get back to us and then we can, definitely follow up with that and create, create whatever we need to,
well,
the
you let me
policies,
know.
procedures.
Yeah, the board can let me know if you need anything from it. I'm gonna work with the town.
Perfect. Yeah, cause we need to kind of do it in conjunction with, because we're sharing our leads. It's going to the same place and, it's kind of a shared service thing, which, we need to be doing, so, yes.
This $500,000 for the boat club, I think before the village contemplates any kind of tax increase to cover that expense, there would need to be an open public discussion about the use of that entire property as called for in the comprehensive plan. I think that to contemplate any expenditure, any tax increase on the residents as a whole would be improper for that purpose.
Sure. In running the numbers, it was, we're not saying that's what we're doing, but, this, even if we go through the public hearing, it's either way, whatever the proper uses are, it's still that cost. So, we're just kind of, trying to gauge ourselves in the future of what may happen, so, either way, no matter what goes there or the uses as the comp plan, determines, it's still something that we have to consider, expenditure-wise to build, and the uses would definitely come through the public process to, following special board's recommendations. Anybody else, yes?
Yeah, this is, kind of mostly housekeeping, and correct me if I'm wrong, but with, the kind of larger number of committees and so forth, I wonder if I could maybe just double check the rules for the, unplanned committee meetings and so forth. And correct me if I'm wrong, if this falls under, like, it's not like a meeting law, but it's actually New York State meeting law, whereby if, through no plan of anyone, that a quorum of any particular committee just happens to meet, or not meet, but it'd be in the same room or whatever. And I know this is kind of on this committee, so these people, it's kind of like you have to really think about, how many committees are you on and so forth. But I just throw that out there so considering a number of committees now, and, you know, not pointing any fingers at any one person, but just to, you know, try to stay up to date on that.
Yeah, and there was even one of the discussion, and the NYSERDA, that, you know, our committees need to be made aware of that process. So, you know, we're definitely trying to get everybody on the same page. OML is, it's
I
here to
think,
stay.
to Frank's point though, if you're, are you referring to a casual or,
Yeah, the unexpected
you know, unexpended quorum, unexpected quorum, and quorums don't really, they aren't, you can have an unexpected quorum if you're not conducting business,
Right.
village business. You know, we could, you know,
You
the
could all go
five
to
of
the
us
movies.
could wind up in aisle 5 of a food town, and it would be,
Exactly.
it would not be a problem, because we're not conducting
But,
village business.
Frank, there are really good guidance memos on OML from Bob Friedman, and I'm happy to circulate some of them about those very particular topics. They're out there, they're on the State Committee of Open Government websites. But I know I have them in my cabinet of legal research, so if you guys need any, I'm happy to, and if you guys wanna circulate them to the committee members, just as an FYI,
I
then
think
we
that
can
would
certainly
be
do that.
very useful,
Really
yeah,
good idea.
so, Carrie's
I have them in here too, I
Before
keep
you,
them there as they come up.
before you go. Anything else, public comment?
I just want to remind everyone on the board to be kind to one another, both in open meetings and behind closed doors. I'll leave it at that. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for coming.